Coming up, the Stars finally get 2 points in 2023, and the Blackhawks getting a rare win. This is Locked On Game to Game, NHL.
Every game, every team, every angle. Locked On Game to Game, your team every day.
Welcome in. You're listening to Locked On Game to Game NHL. I'm your host, Kainani Stevens. We go over the biggest stories here on the ice with all of your local experts. Thank you so much for making Locked On your first listen every single weekday. We're ready to recap the action for you from Sunday. We start out with Dallas, who took a few days, but they finally got their first win of 2023. Locked On Stars is happy to go over a bounce-back win for Dallas.
The Dallas Stars picked up their first win of 2023 in convincing fashion over the Florida Panthers. Hey everybody, Dane Lewis, Locked On Stars, coming to you on Sunday evening, a few hours after the Dallas Stars rung in their first win of the new year. Needed to get back on track after a rough week out in California, and after a slow start to the first period, some great saves by Jake Ottinger, the Stars were able to get things rolling offensively, led by their offensive leader of the entire season, Jason Robertson, with goals 27 and 28 on the season in this game, and also huge contributions from the blue line. 5 of the 6 Stars defensemen getting at least a point in this game. Ryan Suter with 2, and 3 of those 5 defensemen getting goals. Miro Heiskanen, Esa Lindell, and Niels Lundqvist. Really great, solid team win for the Stars. A very important game to get 2 points out of, as now they head on the road yet again for 2 games in New York on Tuesday and Thursday. The only negative coming from this game is that we saw Roope Hintz leave the game early on, and he did not return. According to Stars head coach Pete DeBoer in the postgame press conference, it is an upper body injury unrelated to what the injury that he suffered earlier in the week in Anaheim when he took a puck to the knee and couldn't put weight on his leg. He did return in that game against the Ducks, and he was out on the ice for a little bit early on in the game against the Panthers, but then took a hit and did not return to the game. He will be reevaluated on Monday again, according to Stars head coach Pete DeBoer. So we can only hope that Roope Hintz is going to be okay and that he is able to recover quickly from whatever this injury is, and he can get back out on the ice safely and perform to the levels that we know that he can, which is excellent levels. He's been one of the best players for the Stars all season. But we'll have more information and more insight for you on Monday's episode of Locked On Stars. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast.
Nicholas Backstrom and Tom Wilson returned to the ice for Washington as they got the victory over the Blue Jackets. Locked On Caps is in to go over that matchup.
Washington Capitals blank the Columbus Blue Jackets. Hi, this is Dan Holmey of Locked On Capitals. Darcy Kemper had one heck of a night as he saved 37 shots. That was his 4th shutout of the season, the most in the NHL. This game also saw the return of Nick Backstrom and Tom Wilson. Backstrom had a solid game out there, winning 5 of 6 draws and managing 3 hits, 1 shot and 1 block. Wilson, who's known for his physicality, brought that. He led the team with 4 hits, tied with Alex Ovechkin. Erik Gustafsson continues to do big things on the blue line with the Capitals as well. Erik Gustafsson, 7th goal of the season. Gustafsson now has 15 points in his last 11 games. Keep it locked to Locked On Capitals, and I will keep you updated on all the news with your Washington Capitals. Locked On Capitals, your team every day.
A disastrous start to the road trip as the Flames fall to one of the worst teams in the league in Chicago. Locked On Flames tries to figure out exactly what happened against the Blackhawks.
Hello, everyone, and it looks like the Calgary Flames are starting their 5-game road trip out on a bad note. Tonight, they fell to the Chicago Blackhawks 4-3 in overtime as Jacob Markstrom struggled very early in the game. Hello, everyone. It's Jess Belmosto here from Locked On Flames, and I have your post-game reaction here. It was a game. It was a very unfortunate mistake for Jacob Markstrom to be starting 4 games in a row. We know that his limit for now is at least 3, and Dan Vladar came in and put a stellar performance that stopped this game from being 7-3. But at the end of the day, it was Nazem Kadri who had a fantastic goal to tie it up at 3 apiece, and Jonathan Huberdeau earned his 8th of the season as well. They're on to St. Louis on Tuesday, and we will have to see where the goaltending leads us. How will the Flames perform? And of course, does Jacob Pelletier slot into the lineup, as Dylan Dubé will probably have at least a 1-game suspension for boarding. Find out more on Locked On Flames.
Coming up, the Blues shut out the Wild. This is Locked On Game to Game NHL. Today's edition of Locked On Game to Game is brought to you by Athletic Greens. This is a product that I use literally every day. I started taking AG1 to help me with my immune system, keep myself healthy, try not to get sick, especially now in the winter. It works with whatever diet you are on, gluten-free, vegan, dairy-free. It's important that you include a multivitamin in your diet. AG1 makes that super simple for you to do. To make it even easier, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Thomas Greiss was impressive in net for St. Louis, sealing the shutout for the Blues in Minnesota. Locked On Wild goes over a frustrating night for the home team.
Tomas Greiss pulled a Harry Houdini over and over and over, and the Wild get shut out by the Blues. Hey everybody, Seth Sopal, host of Locked On Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast, recapping a 3-0 win for the St. Louis Blues, a game in which the Wild were short Matt Zuccarello, and then Jordan Greenway scratched before the game, so the Wild went 11-7. And for the Blues, they get the first goal of the game on the power play, and it came down to a rebound that Philip Gustafsson just couldn't handle, and Jake Middleton missing on an attempt to clear the puck. That leads to 1-0. Then off a turnover, a 2-on-1 goal that makes it 2-0, and an empty netter to seal it. The Wild outshot the Blues by almost 20 shots in the third period, but it was not enough. For more on the Minnesota Wild, make sure you follow Locked On Wild wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Toronto capitalized on Philly's many mistakes to get the win on Sunday. Locked On hosts from the Maple Leafs and Flyers are in to go over everything for you post-game.
It was a big bounce-back weekend for the Toronto Maple Leafs that they picked up consecutive victories over the Detroit Red Wings and the Philadelphia Flyers. On Saturday night, the Leafs washed away the bad taste of their loss to Seattle Kraken with a 4-1 victory over the Detroit Red Wings. Ilya Samsonov was electric in this game. He made 22 saves on 23 shots to get back on track after a couple of rough performances from him. John Tavares scored a pair of goals. Mitch Marner recording his 500th point in his career as the Leafs took care of business against the Red Wings. And then on Sunday night, it was a big 6-2 victory over the Philadelphia Flyers that helped the Leafs complete the perfect weekend. The second line, once again, was the big part of the offense, recording 9 points, with all 3 players recording 3 points. Calle Jarnkrok, a goal, 2 assists. Mitch Marner, 3 assists. And John Tavares with a goal and 2 assists. Not only that, Matt Murray, solid in net, making 34 saves on 36 shots as he got himself back on track in this one. We'll see if they can continue this run. We'll discuss that and more on the latest edition of Locked On Leafs podcast with myself, David Morisuti, and Mike DiStefano.
Well, key mistakes is what cost the Flyers and ended their win streak. Hi, this is Rachel Donner from the Locked On Flyers podcast with your quick reaction to the Flyers' 6-2 loss to the Toronto Maple Leafs. We talked on the show about how you can't make mistakes against a team like Toronto, and there were some huge ones tonight. Morgan Frost did not have his best outing. He had 2 turnovers that led to Leafs goals eventually. Carter Hart wasn't quite at his best, although it wasn't really his fault in the end. The biggest offender, though, was Tony DeAngelo, who got benched near the beginning of the second period, having committed 4 turnovers in 9 shifts. Flyers couldn't really find their footing on the power play either, going 0 for 4. They gave up a shorthanded goal as well. They're going to try and rebound tomorrow night in Buffalo. For more on this game and the Flyers all season long, tune into the Locked On Flyers podcast.
That's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Game to Game NHL. Thank you once again for making Locked On your first listen every weekday. Now make sure that you are subscribed to Locked On NHL and your favorite team's Locked On podcast here on YouTube and wherever else you get your podcast from. I'm Kainani Stevens. This has been Locked On Game to Game.